the Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes? Greetings. I am Admiral Owen Swart, Commanding Officer of the USS Dauntless, and this is the briefing with the Admiral for Stardate -269477.1. I am the Admiral in question, and a couple of things to note before we begin. Firstly, you'll note I'm a little bit late today. Unfortunately, life happened and I was a little behind schedule, but I managed to catch up relatively quickly. The other thing you might notice is that I look a little bit different today. I'm wearing a different uniform. Why is that? Because it is the last week of the calendar month. Every week of every calendar month, we wear a different set of uniforms, whichever uniform we want, in fact. So typically we use the 2375 uniform set, also known as the First Contact Greys. That is the appropriate and official uniform set for our chapter. But because we like to be able to wear as many different uniforms as we like, we make it an allowable indulgence from the 25th until the last day of each month for our crew to wear alternate uniforms. So that's any screen accurate uniform that is correct and accurate. So it reflects the appropriate branch of service. If there's a branch of service insignia, like on this badge here, this is the command star. It is the branch of service color, which is gold. It has my correct rank on the sleeves, which is Admiral. Oh, and there's also something else a little different. You might notice that my beard is missing. Not going to go into too much detail about that. Suffice to say that I underwent a black op on Friday and I had to shave my beard in order to blend in. Rest assured it'll be back by next week, but it's on its way. The less mentioned about that, the better. All right, let us move on to today's topic, which is the medical department. So we've been looking at some of the departments of the Dauntless in excruciating detail over the last few briefing sessions, and today will be no exception because we've still got five more departments to cover, and this is the third, which is the medical department. But before we do that, let us talk a little bit about what the Dauntless is, what we're doing, what we're talking about for those who might be new here. Let me switch to this. There we go. Good. Okay, so what is the USS Dauntless? First of all, we are a Star Trek fan club. Now, that's not a word that we really like to use because while it's not strictly inaccurate, it's not very descriptive of what we are. While, yes, we are a group of people that are brought together by our love of Star Trek, we're more than just a group of people who love Star Trek. We also are interested in promoting the future envisioned in Star Trek. So what does that mean? What future is envisioned? Well, if you're familiar with the Star Trek franchise at all, you will know that it is primarily set in the future, anywhere from the 22nd until the 25th century. Correction, 22nd until the 32nd century. Sorry, there's a phone call which is bugging me. Let me silence that. All right. Yeah, so it's set in the future, and it's intended to be set in our future, or at least in a hypothetical version of our future that we could possibly see occurring one day. And what does this future look like? Well, it's as optimistic as possible because this guy, not that, this guy, Gene Roddenberry, who is the original creator of the Star Trek franchise, he envisioned a world in which most of the problems that we face in our world today, which is things like crime, poverty, disease, war, all of that kind of thing, have largely been fixed, have been solved on Earth, if not in the entire galaxy. And that is what Star Trek depicts. It depicts this idyllic future universe. And we, as Starfleet officers, members of the Dauntless and members of Starfleet, the International Fan Association Incorporated, we are not just interested in talking about Star Trek, but we are interested in building a world that more closely resembles that idyllic future paradise, that utopic vision of the future, doing whatever we can to try and move our world in that direction. So that's what we're here to do. That's why we're here. The Dauntless is a Starfleet style organization, which means that we derive our structures and uniforms and other kinds of elements from the fictional Starfleet as depicted in the Star Trek franchise. So we use those kinds of uniforms, we have ranks and titles, we use a lot of metaphors drawn from that franchise to define our various organizational structures. So, for example, the Dauntless is a chapter of Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association Incorporated. And our chapter metaphor within Starfleet is that of a starship. So the USS Dauntless is an imaginary starship, but it is a metaphorical ship that binds us together. So it's not made out of duratanium hull plating, it's made of ideas, and it is that which groups us, the crew of the Dauntless, together. The ship is not a ship, the ship is the crew. And we have a mission, we have an objective, and that is to bring the message of Gene Roddenberry's vision for the future of mankind to the people of Africa and the Middle East. Why Africa and the Middle East? Because that is the region in which we operate. Starfleet, the International Star Trek Fan Association, which is a long and awkward name, but Starfleet International, is based headquartered in the United States, but we have members from around the world, thousands of members across hundreds of chapters in dozens of countries, and they have broken up the planet into 20 geographical regions. We are in Region 8, which includes Africa and the Middle East. If we want a more specific list of which countries are included in that, a list like that is available. The Dauntless are based here in Cape Town, South Africa. That is our headquarters, and so that is our base of operations and where we spread our influence from. Right, so that is what the Dauntless is. That's what we were doing. Part of the metaphorical structures that we borrowed from the fictional Starfleet is that we have divided our crew up into departments. So each department within the crew, let me pull up the departments page for you there. Each department, there it is. I should have prepared this slide already in advance. Apologies. So each department is responsible for a different aspect of life aboard the Dauntless, and the volunteers serving within each department are responsible for taking on the duties associated with managing that part of Starfleet life. Unfortunately, I am not showing you my slides. There we go. That's the slide I was talking about. So these are the different departments of the USS Dauntless, and each aspect of Dauntless life is covered by one of these departments. So command, communications, engineering, medical, operations, science, security. So far in this series, we have covered science department and the operations department. By the end of this series, we will have covered all 7 departments, hopefully in excruciating detail. But today we're going to be talking about medical. So again, this is the picture of the guy I was talking about, Gene Roddenberry, who is the creator of Star Trek. That's the guy. So let us talk about the medical department, which is why we're here today. So firstly, what is the role of the medical department? What functions aboard the Dauntless do the medical staff undertake? What are they responsible for? Essentially, they are responsible for managing Dauntless activities that relate to health and medical issues. I think I have that slide up here. There it is. Okay, medical department, right. So the medical department is responsible for managing Dauntless activities that relate to health and medical issues. That includes things like fitness challenges, blood drives, illness fundraising, and other similar events. Why is that an aspect of what we do? Why is that relevant? We're a Star Trek fan club. Why are we talking about health and illness and wellness and fitness and that kind of thing? Well, it relates to the various standing orders that help to clarify our broader mission. So standing order number 1 is to promote Star Trek to our friends, families, and the people around us. That's very important, but that's less about what the medical department does. What the medical department does is in understanding order number 2, which is to encourage initiatives to help bring about the future envisioned in Star Trek. So that's that idyllic future that I spoke about, in which everything has been improved for just about everybody. That is where the medical department operates, specifically when it comes to working to better ourselves mentally and physically. That lands squarely in the medical department's sphere of influence. That relates to an aspect of Starfleet life that we call mission readiness. More about that in a moment. And also talking about helping people who need help. So that is where it comes to illness fundraising and blood donation missions. So we're going to go into a lot of detail about that momentarily. Right, so those are the standing orders that are relevant to us. So what about the alignment with Starfleet values? So Starfleet values are another one of these videos that I made some time ago, where we talked about the 3 principal Starfleet values, the values of courage, determination. Well, those are the two we're going to be talking about today: courage and determination. So courage is demonstrated through things like blood donation, making personal sacrifice for the benefit of other people. So if you are able to donate blood, if you can summon up the courage to undergo a few moments of discomfort once every 2 months or so in order to save up to 3 potential lives, that is the kind of courage that we're talking about. And the determination to make a difference not only in the lives of other people, but also in your own life through managing your own mission readiness. So making yourself the best possible version of yourself. And again, I've done a series of these videos talking about mission readiness in a lot of detail, but essentially there are 3 principal components to it. There's physical mission readiness, and that involves looking after yourself from a medical point of view, but also making yourself as fit and physically capable as possible, whether that's able to lift heavy things, able to run long distances, or simply able to maintain your physical health through constant and repetitive effort. There's the mental side of things, and that is to learn as much as you can to make yourself as mentally strong as possible, to increase your array of possible skills. And then there is the emotional, psychological side of it, which is to buttress yourself as emotionally as possible, to make yourself as emotionally resilient as you possibly can through the practices of mission readiness. Again, I've done these in excruciating detail in previous editions of the Briefing with the Admiral series. I advise you to go through the playlist on our YouTube channel and go look through those if you want to know more about those, and you should. So those are the Starfleet values that relate to the medical department. But let's look a little bit more practically about what the medical department looks like. Who are the people of the medical department? So, okay, so again, the activities that I'm getting a little out of sequence here. So let's look first at the activities. What are the activities that the medical department undertakes? So the principal activities in the medical department are, among other things, scheduling and planning blood donation missions. So these are the things that relate to standing order number 2, and that is it is definitely our most important mission. So these are missions that we undertake once every 2 months, once every 9 weeks to be precise, where the entire crew, en masse, even though we are based in different parts of the world, en masse we go and donate blood together. This is critically important. This is the only mission that we undertake that has actual life and death consequences. Now, in terms of why do we donate blood as opposed to doing other things? Well, that's because donating blood is the single most efficient thing you can do in order to save the life of another human being. That is, if you are not a medical professional, medical professionals work in saving people's lives every day. And if you are not a billionaire and therefore able to donate large sums of money to medical causes. If you're not either of those things, then the single most efficient thing you can do to save people's lives is to donate blood. A single donation of blood, a single unit of blood given, is split into 3 different blood products, each one of which has the potential to save a person's life, a person who's undergone some kind of medical emergency and needs that unit in order to survive. So if you donate blood, you can save up to 3 people. If you do it regularly, then that every 2 months you're saving up to 3 people. So that's what, 6 donations a year, 6 times 3 is 18. So 18 people's lives can be saved by you being a regular blood donor with the rest of the crew. So that's what we do. We get together once every 9 weeks, and we go in our separate away teams on what we call a multi-vector away mission, which means that all of those away teams are deployed simultaneously in their respective sectors. They go and meet up, they have a fun time together, have some breakfast, and then go and give blood together. Those who are physically incapable of giving blood, because that is about 25% of the population, are not able to donate blood. Those who are physically incapable of doing so are there to support the blood donors in any way that they can, whether that's bringing them coffee, whether that's taking photographs, giving them a ride, or simply keeping them company. So those 1 in 4 people who cannot donate are still there to support. Everybody else is there to donate, and that is what we do. So that is, again, the most important mission that we undertake. And because it's the most important mission, it is also the only mission that we regularly embark on that is priority 1. Priority 1 missions are missions aboard the Dauntless that are mandatory for all active duty personnel. So if you are an active duty member, in other words, if you have access to the screening room channel on Discord and you're able to see us streaming this right now, that means you are an active duty member of the crew, and it is mandatory for you to attend one of these missions. We've got one coming up up. As I'm recording this, I'm sitting here on the 29th of October 2024, and we've got one coming up, not this coming weekend, but the weekend after that. We'll be posting announcements about that very shortly in the various channels so that the away team leaders can begin coordinating their efforts to get their teams together on that day. And if you want to know when the next Priority 1 mission will be coming up, you can look at the Dauntless calendar. At any time, you can add that calendar to your own personal Google Calendar so that you can get the necessary reminders and schedule your life around those dates, because those are very important and they are, again, mandatory. So what is the medical team's role in organizing these blood donation missions? Well, they are the ones who facilitate the entire mission. So they maintain, for example, a list of blood banks and donor centers preferred by away teams, because we have, I think at the moment, 8 different away teams located in different parts of the world, some of which are around South Africa, some of which are overseas. And in each sector, in each town, in each city, there are usually multiple blood banks available. And so it is the medical team's task to maintain a list of the preferred blood banks that those various away teams like to go to. So here in South Africa, there's really only 2 different blood donation services. If you are here in Tau sector in Cape Town, there is the Western Cape Blood Services. In the rest of the country, there is the South African National Blood Services. That's it. So you can go to one or those 2 institutions in order to find out where your nearest blood donation clinic is and go to that. And that is the task of the away team leader in your sector, to figure out which is the optimal blood donation clinic to attend, and then to organize the meal, etc., around that location. In some of our other sectors, especially in the United States, there are multiple blood donation organizations operating in any given sector. And so it is up to the away team leader to determine which one is the optimal one for their crew members to attend. And it is the medical team's task to keep a record of which ones they prefer, so that they can provide the contact details and that kind of thing to future members of that away team should the need arise. Next item that the medical team undertake is providing reminders and answering questions relating to blood donation and blood donation missions, especially for members who perhaps haven't donated blood before. They might have questions about the process of it, about the logistics of it, the physicality of it, how uncomfortable is it, that kind of thing. And so it rests with the medical team to have the necessary knowledge and experience to be able to address questions like that, whether that's providing the actual information themselves, or at least having access to the relevant resources so they can go look it up. A question that we often come across is, I'm on such and such medication, does that preclude me from being able to donate blood? That can be a difficult question, and a layperson might not have that kind of information available, but a lot of these blood donation facilities will publish that kind of self-exclusion data on their websites, and it's up to the medical team to be able to navigate to where that information is available and help that crew member address that question for themselves. So those are the kinds of things that the medical department are involved in when it comes to blood donation missions. The other side of what medical does relates to physical fitness. So primarily the physical, but also the emotional side of mission readiness. And when it comes to the physical side, that is promoting fitness-related activities. So one of those things that often happens is every Saturday morning in parks around the world is a 5K run called Park Run. I've got it open here. Here it is. So this is a free timed 5K run or walk that anyone in the world is able to join in on. At the moment, this is a weekly away mission for Tau team, but it is an available thing that can be scheduled by any away team leader or any other member of the crew for that matter, if you'd like to participate in a free 5K run or walk every week. And the medical team are here to assist you in doing that, to answer those kinds of questions, but also other kinds of fitness related activities like online fitness classes is a project that they're currently looking into doing, and that kind of thing. So anything related to fitness, any kind of activities that either away teams can do out in the world or individual members can do in their own home, the medical department are interested in promoting that kind of thing. There's also operating the fitness challenge. So there are a number of challenges that the Dauntless embarks upon every month, and these are sort of leaderboard competitive activities that the crew can participate in friendly competition against other members of the crew. And the fitness challenge is one such challenge. So how does this work? This happens on a platform called Stride Kick, which looks kind of like this. And if you are a member of the crew, you join up to our leaderboard, and the way you join is by adding our chief medical officer as a friend on this platform. At the moment, I'm performing that duty myself because we don't actually have a chief medical officer right now. More about that soon. And this app, it in theory, automatically tracks the number of steps that you perform every single day. Unfortunately, they've been undergoing some work recently on their platform, and they have required that a lot of the step tracking be done manually, which is a bit of a hassle, but it's not the end of the world. You can do that if you have your fitness tracking app, whether it's or Fitbit apparently is able to sync neatly with it. But if you're using something like Apple Health or Google Fit or Samsung Health or something like that at the moment, unfortunately, you have to open that app, check your number of steps, and then log the same number of steps in StrideKick. It also has a handy tool that allows you to convert other activities that are not steps into an equivalent number of steps. So you open up the conversion tool within StrideKick and you say, well, I spent 45 minutes today lifting weights or doing yoga or uh, roller skating or any other kind of activities that wouldn't have registered as steps on your personal fitness tracking device, and then it will convert that activity into an equivalent number of steps and then add that to your total. So if you are not the kind of person who is willing or able or enjoys doing a lot of walking or running, but you still are physically active, you can still get credit for your activity in the fitness challenge. So we rack up our number of steps. That is the currency for the fitness challenge in StrideKick every month. And then at the end of the month, the chief medical officer, who is, again, at the moment, I'm doing this work, will go into the leaderboard and check to see who has logged the most steps. Those crew members who are, for whatever reason, unable to get the StrideKick platform working, that for the moment we are able to do a manual override. So if you can just provide the number of steps that you've completed for the month to the CMO, or again to me, then we can allocate you those steps accordingly in the final rankings. We also have a few members who are still using the previous system that we used before StrideKick, a system called count.it. And the people who are logging steps will still get credit for that. We're able to do a manual reconciliation of all of those different steps across all of those different platforms at the end of the month as needed. But ideally, we'd like to move to one platform that can do it all in an automated way, the same way that Duolingo does for our linguistics challenge. And we're hoping that StrideKick sorts out their technical issues so that it can become that platform for us going forward. So that's what the fitness challenge looks like. And that, again, is administered by the medical department. And then the next thing is the physical fitness test. Now, what is this? So the physical fitness test is something that we've borrowed from, here it is, from real world military organizations, specifically from the United States Marine Corps. The physical fitness test is a minimum fitness requirement for all active duty Marines. They have to complete this test. I think it's once a year or once every 18 months or something on that time scale. And it is the bare minimum fitness requirements for a Marine to have. So that includes Marines who sit behind a desk or who are always on base and never see combat. They need to be a minimum level of fit. And that means they have to meet some basic requirements. And what are those requirements? Well, it doesn't really matter. We've got a slightly adapted version of the physical fitness test. Firstly, what's different with our physical fitness test is that it is not mandatory. This is an optional, aspirational thing that any member of the crew can undertake should they wish to do so. If you want to go through the physical fitness test, you can test yourself, use your fitness tracking device, your pad or your PerScan, and send the logs of your participation to the chief medical officer, as long as all of these things are done within a 24-hour period. And if you've passed the test, you will be allocated your physical fitness test certification, which then would be renewed annually. And what are the numbers we're talking about? So these are adapted from the Marine Corps physical fitness test, and they look something like this. So it consists of 3 activities: pull-ups, abdominal crunches, and a 5-kilometer run. So pull-ups or push-ups, you can do push-ups instead of a pull-up. Success or failure is determined by how many pull-ups or push-ups you can complete in one sitting. There is no time limit. So how many are you supposed to do? Well, that depends on your age. In fact, it's the same for all ages in the specific requirements. So you need to be able to do 3 pull-ups or 3 push-ups. So that's full pull-ups or full push-ups within the time, in any one sitting. So there's no time limit. If it takes you 20 minutes to do that, that's fine. But if you're reasonably fit, you should be able to knock out 3 push-ups or 3 pull-ups within a few seconds. That one should be relatively easy. Next one is abdominal crunches. Success or failure is determined by the number of crunches you can do in a 2-minute time limit. So you set yourself a timer for 2 minutes, and then you count how many crunches you can do. If you're young, so if you're between 18 and 26 years old, you need to hit the target of 50 crunches within that time limit. If you're a little bit older, if you're 46 or older, then you need to do a minimum of 40 crunches within that time limit, which is a similar number of crunches. And if you're in between, then it's 45 crunches. It sounds like a lot, but it's really not that much. If you're reasonably fit, you can do that number of crunches in that time limit quite easily. The next one is a 5 kilometer run. This is quite easy. If you are doing park run every week, then this is something that you can aspire towards. You can work towards hitting this time limit because you can be tracking your progress regularly. Success or failure is determined by how long it takes to complete the run. So again, run is used kind of vaguely. You don't actually have to run it. If you can walk it in that time or do a combination of running and walking, that's fine. As long as you complete the 5 kilometer course within the time limit, then you are able to complete the test. And what is the time limit? Well, again, it's modulated by how young you are. If you are 18 to 26, you have to complete it within 30 minutes. If you're a little bit older, it's 31 minutes. If you're my age, it's 32 minutes. Or if you're 46 plus, then it's 35 minutes. That is a bit of a stretch for some people. That's probably the hardest part of the test for most of us, but it is achievable. When I began doing my 5K runs back 6 or 7 years ago, it took me 45 to 50 minutes to complete the 5Ks. I'm now able to hit my relevant target, not consistently, but at least once a year, at least often enough to keep my physical fitness test up to date. So again, the way you complete the test is you use your fitness tracking device to track the number, so your ability to do these things. If your fitness tracking device isn't able to record things like push-ups and pull-ups or abdominal crunches, what you could do instead perhaps is you could set up your pad with a camera next to you on a little tripod and then record yourself doing those things. That would also serve as evidence that you've done it. And then the 5 kilometer run you can track on just about any fitness tracking device that has a GPS attached. So Google Fit, Samsung Health, Apple Health, Fitbit, Strava, anything like that can track you doing a 5 kilometer run and complete the time in which you've done it. In fact, Park Run itself is they time your progress, and all those courses are automatically measured out to 5 kilometers. So if you can show that you've completed a park run in under the necessary amount of time, then that will count as your proof of having completed it. So when you take the test, you contact the chief medical officer, you drop the proof of your having completed it in the gym channel on our Discord server, and then the CMO will issue you the relevant certification, which is valid for 12 months. So that is the physical fitness test. Unlike with the Marine Corps, the physical fitness test is not mandatory. It's aspirational. Any member of the crew is welcome to participate, but it's just a nice thing to have to be able to prove to yourself that you are physically fit, at least to a minimum, a bare minimum standard of the United States Marine Corps. It should be noted that the U.S. Marine Corps, if you are a combat soldier, you have to meet a much more rigorous fitness standard than the physical fitness test, the PFT. This is just the bare minimum for all Marines to complete. But that's another organization, and if you want to know more about that, you can listen to the U.S. Marine Corps webinars about that, if you like. All right, so those are the basic activities of the medical department. So we've got the blood donation missions and we've got the various fitness related activities. Now I think we can look at who are the people, again, so now this is the part I meant to talk about earlier, and who are the people, who are the duty station holders of the medical department. So we have two medical duty stations, which is not unusual for departments. You'll notice that most of our departments have only two duty stations within them, and the medical department is no exception. The lead duty station holder within the medical department is the chief medical officer, the CMO. Fictional examples of this would include Dr. Beverly Crusher, Dr. Leonard H. McCoy, Dr. Flox. Those were all the CMOs of their respective starships. We currently have no CMO, which is why I've been doing all of those duties. If you are interested in applying for the duty station of the chief medical officer, then you can do that from this form here. Just navigate to the medical department part of our website and click the apply here button, and that will kick off the induction process. So what is the induction process? I've gone into a lot of detail about induction in a previous one of these videos, but essentially it is the process whereby we bring people online. We provide the applicant with all the necessary skills and experience in order to do the job before they take the seat. So if you are interested in becoming the chief medical officer and you don't have all the necessary qualifications that we'll be covering in a moment, but you think that you're the right kind of person for the job, you can apply regardless. And then we will work through in a staged approach. Firstly, we will work through getting you through all of the different prerequisites that are listed below. We'll go through the prerequisites now. Make sure that you have them all checked off before you move on to the next stage, which will be on-the-job training, in which somebody who is already familiar with the duties associated with the role will walk you through how to do the job. Only once you're confident that you're able to do the job in question, you'll go through an assessment phase where we'll test you to see if you're actually as capable as you think you are. Once everybody is satisfied with your ability to perform the duty, you will then be awarded the title of Chief Medical Officer. Only once everything has happened. This is a process that is expected to take several months at least. So this is a lengthy process, and that's what happens. Now, another thing that's important to mention here is that just because it says that it's vacant doesn't mean that there isn't currently somebody in the induction process for this position. We don't advertise when somebody is in the induction process because that is considered something that's private. That is because somebody going through induction might decide partway through the process that they're not cut out for it, that they don't really want to complete, or life has happened and they're not able to pursue the process any further, and they need to be able to step away from that process without losing face. We don't want it to become public knowledge that they tried to become the chief medical officer and failed. We don't want that. So we keep it private right up until the person has proven to themselves and to us that they're able to do the job, and then we will, with great celebration and applause, announce the fact that they've earned the title of chief medical officer. So that's why we do that. So if we do have somebody in the induction process for chief medical officer and you decide to apply for that position, we will let you know at that point that actually there's currently already someone ahead of you in the queue. Perhaps you'd be open to considering a different position like a deputy chief medical officer, or perhaps a duty station in a different department. And we will talk to you about that when that happens, if that happens. So just because it says vacant doesn't mean that there isn't somebody in the queue, but it does mean we are still open to accepting applications. There might just be some negotiation that happens after the fact. Right, so what is the CMO? Chief Medical Officer is the department head for the medical department of the USS Dauntless. The department head acts as the communication conduit between the command department and the medical department. This position may not be held by an enlisted member, so that is commissioned officers only. So what are the duties and qualifications of the Chief Medical Officer? So the duties are the medical missions, working with away team leaders, scheduling and planning blood drives and blood donation away missions. So that means maintaining a schedule of blood donation missions undertaken by away teams for purposes of scheduling future missions in accordance with safety standards employed by blood banks in respective sectors. What does that mean? So the safety standards we're talking about there are essentially how often it is safe to donate blood. The general international consensus on this is that it's safe to donate blood once every 8 weeks. We have therefore set in stone, not in stone, but in digital stone, a schedule for blood donation missions every 9 weeks, allowing for a small margin of error in case somebody fails on the day and needs to reattempt after a day or two, or somebody can't make it on that day and they want to catch up and they don't want to fall out of sync with the rest of the crew. So once every 9 weeks, we have scheduled those away missions. We have already scheduled all of the away missions as far as we possibly can using the tool that we have, which is Google Calendar, which allows us to schedule missions. I think it's 8 years in advance. So all the way up to 2032 or something like that, we already have all of those missions on our calendar. So if you want to go see when the blood donation away missions are going to be in the year 2029, go to our Google Calendar and you can see it there. And again, you can add that to your own personal calendar using the button. So general consensus is once every 8 weeks. So we use a once every 9 week schedule for our blood donation missions, and it is the chief medical officer's job to maintain that schedule. It's usually pretty easy to maintain, but in case anything disrupts it, it might need to be changed. So for example, with the pandemic that happened a few years ago, we had to change temporarily the way in which we undertook these blood donation missions, and that required that we reschedule all future missions based on those changes. But we were able to change it back again after a couple of years, but that meant, again, another change in scheduling. So that is the chief medical officer's job to manage that. And then maintaining a list of blood banks and donor centers preferred by away teams. We've already spoken about that aspect of it. Next is crew health and fitness. So this is running fitness related missions. Running has a dual meaning here. It doesn't mean actually running necessarily, although if you're the chief medical officer, you should be running. Actually, that's something that I wanted to talk about as well. When we're talking about an applicant for a duty station like this, like chief medical officer, we have a list here of requirements, and we're going to get to those requirements again, of qualifications that the applicant needs to have. Now, again, the applicant doesn't need to have all of those qualifications ready on application. The part of the process of the induction process is to help get that person checked off on that list. But we're not only looking at those qualifications when we're looking at an applicant, we're also looking at the values that the applicant espouses, embodies. And when we're talking about something like chief medical officer, we want to have, and we will only really consider applicants that really internalize the work of the medical department. What do I mean by that? So we'd be looking at somebody who takes seriously both our blood donations and health and fitness. So when we're talking about blood donation, what does that mean? If you are not a regular blood donor, your chief medical officer is not for you, because you are going to be promoting and encouraging and enticing and bullying people, members of the crew, into parting with their blood. But if you're not prepared to do that yourself, or even if you're not able to through no fault of your own, but if you are not doing that thing yourself on a regular basis, it's not fair that you ask other people to do that thing that you yourself will not or cannot do. So if you're not a regular blood donor, it's going to be a hard ask for us to consider you as a candidate for chief medical officer. And on the health and fitness side, if you don't have an approach to fitness in your own life, you don't have a regular fitness regime, that's going to be difficult for you to promote that to the rest of the crew. And I don't mean that you have to be a bodybuilder or an Olympic athlete or a fitness influencer or anything like that. But if you don't think that fitness is important enough that you have an application and an approach to it within your own life, then maybe chief medical officer is not for you. So if you're a regular blood donor and you have an approach to fitness within your own life, a regular fitness regime, then maybe this is the job for you. Maybe if you think that this is important enough that other people should be helped through their fitness journeys and should be encouraged to donate blood, then maybe you should be our next chief medical officer. All right, so let me carry on. So crew health and fitness, so running fitness related missions, working with away team leaders with scheduling and planning missions such as weekend 5K runs. So that's those park run events, hikes, or online fitness classes. We haven't done a lot of those lately, but again, it's on the agenda for the medical department. Providing resources and advice to team leaders and individual crew members on participating in such missions. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Operating the Dauntless Fitness Challenge. We spoke about the fitness challenge, providing a monthly report of all crew steps logged by crew, announcing the winner, and forwarding results to the Starfleet Medical for inclusion in regional and fleet-wide challenges as appropriate. Starfleet Medical, let's just talk about that now. So Starfleet International has a number of special interest groups, which are sort of clubs within club, devoted to certain aspects of life within Starfleet. These are called auxiliaries. And Starfleet Medical is one such auxiliary. So this is a group of Starfleet members that have a particular interest in medical things. And so they collaborate on various projects that have a medical focus across the fleet. So not limited within specific chapters, but fleet-wide. And one of the things that they do is they have a fleet-wide step challenge. And how do they administer that? Well, they do it at a regional level. So they have appointed what they call assistant surgeon generals. So the leader of the Starfleet Medical Auxiliary is called the Surgeon General Starfleet. So they have a number of assistant surgeon generals. So each region has an assistant surgeon general who represents Starfleet Medical within that region and operates the regional arm of the fleet-wide STEP challenge every month. So we don't currently have an assistant surgeon general here in Region 8, but if we did have one, then the chief medical officer would take the steps that we've collected as part of our fitness challenge and forward them on to that ASG so that they can be contributed towards the fleet-wide step challenge. Without having that communication layer in between the assistant surgeon general, it's a little bit difficult for us to participate as a chapter, but that is something that the chief medical officer would work to solve by collaborating with other officers within Region 8 to try and get somebody to step up as assistant surgeon general. In fact, I would strongly encourage our chief medical officer to volunteer as assistant surgeon general themselves, but that would be at the discretion of the officer in question. So, forwarding the results to Starfleet Medical for inclusion in regional and fleet-wide challenges as appropriate. Administering the physical fitness test, receiving and processing logs of members attempting to complete the test, and awarding certification accordingly. Now we're moving into general department head stuff. So one is certification in collaboration with the science department, training and assessing members of the medical department on departmental orientation. The medical department orientation doesn't yet exist. There is a task on the list that each department head is expected to put together an orientation for their crew members. Only the security department has actually begun that project, and I, as the current acting chief medical officer, have not even thought about what the medical orientation would even look like. But hopefully someday that will come to fruition. And when that does, the chief medical officer will be working with the science department in putting together that departmental orientation course. Departmental supervision, which means maintaining open lines of communications with all members of the medical department. What this means is each active duty member of the crew needs to check in at least once a month with their department head. Um, Ideally, that would look like a crew report. So at the end of each month, we ask each member of the crew to submit a report to their department head detailing all of the relevant activities that they've participated in that month. It's not mandatory, but it's strongly encouraged. Failing that, the department head is expected to have at least one kind of direct interaction with each member of their team per month. So whether that's a private message conversation or a phone conversation or a face-to-face meeting for coffee or whatever it is, as long as they've had some kind of interaction, then we know that that person is still alive and still active and still participating, and that is better than nothing. So that is the departmental supervision aspect of the department head's duties. Reporting on behalf of the medical department, so that's submitting the departmental monthly status report. All of those crew reports are collated by the chief medical officer into a monthly report, which details everything that the department itself has done, and that is forwarded onto the executive committee for inclusion into the chapter's monthly status report, which goes to Starfleet Command, and so on. I've done an extensive video on reporting structures within the Dauntless some time ago. If you'd like to learn more about that, I recommend going there and finding out more about that. Crow's Nest, so generating content for the internal video update series. So the Crow's Nest used to be our internal newsletter. It is now an internal video news series. In theory, it's a daily series, but it only comes out when we actually have something we need to report. But it's up to the various department heads to generate content for Crow's Nest videos. So if there's something that the crew needs to know about that's quite important and quite urgent, then the communications team will put together a Crow's Nest video about that. So the department heads generate that content, pass it on to the communications team so that a Crow's Nest video can be created. Delegation, which means performing any and all duties the Deputy Chief Medical Officer is unable to perform. So the DCMO is the only other duty station within the department. So any duties that the DCMO is unable to perform rests then on the shoulders of the CMO. Officer of the Watch. So officers of the Watch monitor Dauntless communication channels during convenient hours and take swift action should any inappropriate content be posted or other issues arise. So our primary communications channel is Discord, where we do most of our activities, but we use other various online channels as well. We still have a Facebook group, although it's pretty much dead, and we're looking to shut that down at some point. It still exists for the time being. We use a few other communications channels that are sort of related to specific aspects of Dauntless life. And officers of the Watch should be monitoring those channels when convenient, when we can. And if anything gets flagged either by the automods or by other users or by the officer of the Watch themselves as having been posted that was inappropriate, because we're all people and sometimes we say things we shouldn't or we post things in the wrong place, it's up to the officer of the Watch to take action on that, whether that is having a chat with the person that posted the thing or removing the thing or whatever it might be, taking appropriate action. So that is a duty that most of the senior staff have to undertake. We just keep an eye on things and making sure that everything is running smoothly, and if there are any glitches, to take appropriate action, if any. And then fleet operations, which is collaborating and coordinating with medical communities within Region 8 and Starfleet International, which is to say Starfleet Medical. So the Chief Medical Officer reports to the Executive Officer, which is true of all department heads. And now we get to the qualifications that the CMO is expected to have. So again, for the induction process, you don't actually have to have any of these already completed. The induction process is designed to help you check all of these off. The more of them you already have by the time you apply, the easier it will be to get through that aspect of the training process, but strictly speaking, you don't need any of these. But what are the ones that you're going to have to work towards? So firstly, you must already be an active participant in a bare minimum of 50% of all Dauntless medical activities measured over a 3-month time frame. The medical department, as I mentioned, is one of the departments on board that does operate its own activities. So there are missions and away missions that are run by the medical department. And if you want to be an applicant for this position, you need to have attended at least half of the relevant missions accordingly. So this is not just missions, it's online and in-person activities. So those missions and away missions, as well as the monthly challenges. So that's the fitness challenge. You don't have to win the challenge, but you do need to be a participant. Applicant must also be an active user of Discord, Trello, and StrideKick. Those are the principal tools that the Chief Medical Officer uses. Discord is our communication system. StrideKick is how we track the fitness challenge at the moment. Trello is the tool that operations uses to manage tasks and information within the various duty stations aboard the ship. So each duty station holder needs to have a working knowledge of how Trello works in order to interact with that tool. And then there are some qualifications in order to to qualify for application to the position, you need to have grade O2, which is lieutenant junior grade or higher. By the time you've completed all of these, you're much higher than lieutenant junior grade anyway, but just in case, you need to have completed Officers Training School, OTS, through Starfleet Educational Services. Starfleet Academy is what Educational Services used to be called. We haven't updated the name everywhere, but you get the idea of what it is. Need to have completed Starfleet Data Protection Policy, SFDPP. This is because you might be required to handle personal identifying information, and in compliance with various international laws about who is able to handle personal identifying information, Starfleet Educational Services offers an internal certification that will bring you up to speed on the various legal protocols and procedures for handling that kind of thing. So you'll learn how to do it in a safe way and in an appropriate way, and we need that qualification if you're going to be doing this job. There are the initial two exams, the SFDPP 101 and 102, that get you the initial qualification, and then that qualification needs to be renewed annually. There's a renewal exam that we each have to take. Every officer in the fleet that handles PII is required to renew that exam every year, myself included. Then there's the Bridge Officer Certification, Chief Medical Officer. This is also comes from Starfleet Educational Services, and this is a course that more kind of deals with the metaphorical side of what a Chief Medical Officer is, less with the actual day-to-day practicalities of being the CMO of the Dauntless, but more kind of dealing with the conceptual things of what a ship surgeon is, what Starfleet Medical looks like, what does medicine look like in the context of Star Trek, so that you can understand how the conceptual and ideological framework fits together to create the role of the Chief Medical Officer. You need to have completed the new recruit orientation course, which is part of the Dauntless onboarding procedure. You won't be able to do any of these things unless you completed that. You need to be you need an active membership to Starfleet International in good standing. So you need to be a dues-paying member of SFI, and your membership needs to be active. It's going to be impossible to get any kinds of academy certifications unless that is the case. So your SFDPP will expire if your SFI membership is not up to date, and you won't be able to renew it. So that is essential. And then you also need to have a correct and accurate standard duty uniform, the SDU, the Class B uniform. So we have a number of different uniform classes. The one that most crew members will assemble first is the Class C, the leisure uniform, because it's cheap and easy. But if you're a senior member of the crew, we need to be leading by example with something a little bit more formal and structured and professional, and that is the Class B, the standard duty uniform. And for advice in putting that together, you can talk to the quartermaster or myself. And then within 6 months of appointment to the position, you need to have completed the PD 100 certification, the Professional Development Level 1, also from what used to be called the Starfleet Marine Corps Academy. It's now called something else. I can never remember what it is, what the new name is, but that's part of Starfleet Educational Services. And then so again, all of these are, the more of these you can have by the time you apply, the better, but we will assist you in checking all of these off as you go along. The one that is likely to take the most time is this one, putting together an SDU if you don't already have one. Getting one made can be time consuming and expensive, but it is worthwhile because it makes you look so professional, and then you will be a much more sought after representative of the Dauntless. So the privileges of the CMO: upon appointment, the CMO is granted conditional promotion to the grade of 03 or lieutenant. You probably already have lieutenant by the time you've completed all of these things, but just in case. And then after holding the position for 6 continuous months, the promotion becomes permanent. Again, that's probably not relevant, but there it is. The next duty station within the medical department is the Deputy Chief Medical Officer, who essentially is the stand-in, the right-hand person to the Chief Medical Officer. There's not much need to go through all of these requirements because they're basically the same. The duties of the DCMO is to back up the CMO in all of his or her duties and make sure that any assistance that the CMO requires, the DCMO is there to assist. So if the CMO needs help putting together departmental supervision or putting together the monthly DMSR or something like that, then the Chief Medical Officer is there to assist. There's also the aspect of delegation, that is performing any and all duties the duty stations within the medical department are unable to perform. So although there are currently no other duty stations within the medical department, that might not always be true. We might decide to add other medical duty stations to the department roster, in which case the Deputy Chief Medical Officer will be the backup for all of those crew members as well. So if the ship's counselor is unable to perform his or her duties, then the DCMO might need to to step in and assist or something like that. We don't have a ship's counselor, but if we did have one, they would fall under the medical department, and that would be what that would be referring to. The all of the qualifications are basically the same. So if you want to be one, you kind of need to be the other. And in fact, because the position of chief medical officer is currently vacant, the induction process for CMO would actually go via DCMO. So you would, during the process, be appointed to the deputy chief medical officer position before you have earned the chief medical officer requirements as kind of a stepping stone promotional situation. So if you are interested in becoming the chief medical officer, you can apply for either one of these positions because they're both vacant and the application form is in the same place. And there's kind of you start off with the DCMO position. Well, you'll earn your way to the DCMO position first, and then from there you can earn your way to the CMO position, provided of course that there isn't already somebody ahead of you in the queue. So no other duty station positions in the department. What is missing from this page, and I'll have to update that a little bit later, is that we have one non-humanoid member of the crew that is assigned to the medical department, and that is our emergency medical hologram, who you will definitely have interacted with on Discord if you have spent any time there at all. Our EMH is an AI-generated bot. He is under construction and largely experimental, so you should take everything he says with a pinch of salt. He can't necessarily always be relied upon for accuracy because his conversational interface is run by a large language model, an LLM. And as we sit here in late October 2024, LLMs are still notoriously unreliable and are prone to a thing called hallucinations, where they make stuff up instead of necessarily giving you a correct answer. However, he has been programmed with a wealth of information. And if he does give you the correct answer, it can be very, very useful. So if you have any medical questions, especially as it relates to the various aspects of medical life on the Dauntless, so that's health and fitness or blood donation missions, he can give you a lot of information about that kind of thing. He can help you design a workout routine. He can answer your questions about eligibility for blood donation, all that kind of thing. Just be sure to check his answers for veracity. If you're concerned about anything being a little bit off, just check it with a regular Google search to be on the safe side. But for that kind of thing, he's usually pretty good, and I encourage interacting with the EMH, because the more we interact with him, the better he'll become, at least in theory. As the technology underpinning his platform improves, so will his functionality. He does, unfortunately, sometimes develop spontaneous new behavioral patterns, which can be very irritating, but we're working on that, and hopefully by this time next year, he'll be a vastly improved version of himself. All right, so those are the things that I needed to cover for that. So I'd like to just reiterate that the medical department, although they seem kind of tangential, let me get rid of this. We're done with this slide. There we go. Although the medical department seems kind of tangential and peripheral to the function of a Star Trek fan club, really the medical department are responsible for the most important thing we do, which is the blood donation mission. And the physical and emotional aspects of mission readiness are critical to making sure that each and every one of us is as ready for those blood donation missions as we possibly can be. If we are physically fit, if we're physically healthy, then there should be no impediment to us being able to donate blood on a regular basis. And also the emotional fortitude and resilience that we need to shore up the courage that we might need to muster in order to donate blood is very important as well. And the medical department are responsible for assisting us with all of that kind of thing. So physical fitness, blood donations, very, very important aspects of life aboard the Dauntless. And the medical department are responsible for that. Even the EMH, despite all his flaws, is very persistent in making sure that we all remember to donate blood and to stay fit and hydrated and all of that kind of thing. All right, so let us look at the chat. I'm not seeing any chat on YouTube, so let's go through the chat on Discord. Goodness, there's been a lot here. Let's see. Okay, so that's all greetings. Good. Hi, everybody. Let me greet everybody who is here. We've got Senior Chief Newton. We've got Lieutenant Commander Shamali. We've got Petty Officer Matthews. We've got Colonel Hubert. We've got Apprentice Kutsia. We've got Captain van Groenen, and we've got Master Chief Kotza. Thank you for joining, everybody. Good to see you all here. Please remember, if you are an active duty member of the crew, if you haven't already done so, please type hi or something in the chat in the Discord screening room, just so that it's easier for me to do the roll call after the fact, because you get credit for being here during the day. It is an awkward time, middle of the day on a Tuesday, so we appreciate you attending, and you need to get the appropriate credit. Although I do try to call out the names of everybody on the stream, it's much easier to do a roll call out of the chat than it is from the actual video. So please say hi if you haven't already done so. All right, let's see. All right. Yes, so they're pointing out that my slides weren't showing at the beginning. That was my mistake, but at least I managed to figure that out. Good to see everybody. Yes, Captain Francona says, lots of courage. Folks that donate blood are superhumans and awesome. Thanks. Yeah. Yes, I agree. They are awesome, and they are superhumans, and they are heroes. Blood donors are heroes, but they can't do it alone. Those people who are not able to donate blood are also vital to the effort of blood donation missions, which is why those missions are mandatory for everybody. Commander Shamali says, I'm attending this briefing and working in the background, priorities and all that. Yes, that's perfectly acceptable. That considering that this is middle of the day on a work day, and if you need to come back and watch this again later on YouTube or Facebook, that is perfectly acceptable. But if you have any questions or comments after the fact, please feel free to drop them in Discord to me directly, or in the screening room chat, or on the comments sections on Facebook or YouTube, and we'll try to address those questions either then and there, or perhaps in a future video. The EMH has entered the chat but is having errors, so he needs a lot of work. Okay, let's see. Petty Officer Matthew says, hoping to join soon once I have a smartwatch. My phone doesn't track steps. That's fair enough. Yes, so the equipment that we need in order to track for the fitness challenge is typically one of two things. A smartwatch, what we call a per scan. That's part of our Star Trek metaphorical approach to things. A per scan was a device that crew members wore in Star Trek the motion picture, which is basically just a personal scanner, and smartwatches today do largely the same thing. They're pretty good at tracking steps. I would recommend getting a good one, so something like a Fitbit or a Garmin or a Samsung watch, something like that, because those are reliable and generally pretty good. Most smartphones, that is pads, are capable of tracking steps while they're in your pocket. Some are not able to do that for whatever reason, but at least most Android devices are able to do that out of the box unless they're broken or something like that. Commander Shamali says, I would absolutely die if I had to do the test now, but soon. Yes, I assume she's talking about the physical fitness test. It is tricky. That 5K run is quite a challenge, but it is achievable. It's something that can be done. It might just take you a while to work towards it, but that's okay. Every week, every park run is a step in the right direction, or more like 5,000 steps. All right, let's see. There was a question, something about Alpha. Park run in Alpha when? That question was addressed to Captain Van Groenen, who is the away team leader for Alpha Team. About a year ago, well, up until about a year ago, we used to run weekly park runs as a multi-vector away mission, which meant that every team everywhere in the world was invited to come and participate in park run. But we realized that it was really only Tau team that was participating on the regular, so we restricted that mission to Tau team specifically. But any other away team leaders, if you'd like to get going on park run in your sector, we can set up a parallel away mission, so the same mission but in a different sector. And if we get enough different sectors up and running, so to speak, in parkrun again, then we can just reinstitute it as a multi-vector away mission. Parkrun, however, is a priority 3 mission, which means that it's not mandatory or even expected that people attend, but everyone is encouraged to attend. So if you can do parkrun, you should. And even if there's no away mission for parkrun in your area, you should do it anyway. And then we can talk about instituting it as an away mission later if you like. All right, let's see. Any other questions? We've just got the EMH causing trouble. Commander Shamali talking about the SFDPP. Again, the Starfleet Data Protection Policy exam was traumatic for Commander Shamali. It is quite a difficult exam. Oh, Colonel Hubert reminds me that the Starfleet Marine Corps Academy is now called the Starfleet Marine Training Center, which is a very logical name, and hopefully this time I will remember. Let's see. All right. Okay, I think that is all of the questions in the chat. Again, if you have any questions after the fact, please feel free to drop them either in the comment section on YouTube or Facebook. You can message them to me directly, or whatever other method you like, smoke signals, Telegram, whatever. It's all fine. It all works except for WhatsApp. It's the only place you won't be able to find me. All right. So just to conclude, the medical department is absolutely critical to the success of the Dauntless's mission, as it ensures that the crew is healthy enough to attend to their duties, including and especially priority 1 missions like blood drives. The medical department literally deals with matters of life and death, as its initiatives can save lives and improve the quality of life for crew members and the public alike. Thank you, everybody. That is all for today. You are dismissed. Swart out. The Starfleet life with the USS Dauntless. Are you brave enough to be a Starfleet officer? Do you have what it takes